protect the affairs of one religion.
Let me jump in there.
Yeah.
When you say honor God, if I had, say, like the first edition of NewsNight, we had pretty much the same argument right here on this topic.
Yeah.
And the question is, because back then we had Bill O'Kerr on the set. Now, if you say honor God, which God are we talking about? The Christian God, the Muslim God, the Hindu gods, and there were quite a few of them.
Okay, that's where in the marketplace of religion, each religion will have to define its own God, how they define him, because it is based on their holy books. The Hindus will define what they mean by God, but the government, the argument we have as Christians, that the government should give equal freedom to all the parties. We are like in a marketplace displaying our wares, so that each religion should be allowed to freely display their wares, propagate their religion, say the benefits and the merits, or if any, of that religion, and let people, including those that are in the government, decide which one to affiliate themselves to. However, what the government has done by retaining the Qadi courts, by the way, the issue is not that Muslims should not have the Qadi courts. The Qadi courts, or the Qadi system, is an essential aspect of Islam. What we are saying, let the government protect and ensure that Muslims have their Qadi courts practiced in their places of worship, in the mosque, and at their own expense. Period. But we are not saying...
not by taxpayers, not by taxpayers' expense.
By all taxpayers, because essentially, many people do not know what exactly a Qadi does. A Qadi is a judge.
And quite frankly, a lot of ignorance has emerged on that particular topic.
Yeah, a Qadi...
Christian.
Yeah,
on both ends.
That's what we are. A Qadi is a judge. Now, it's actually not... The term Qadi is not actually Islamic. In the Bible, which came earlier than maybe at least earlier than Islam, the term Qadi is used. Even Jesus himself used the term Qadi. You read Luke chapter 10, verse 2. Is a judge. Is a judge that judges Islamic matters based on the dictates or the teachings of the Quran. That one, we have no problem with that. That's what Muslims should do. Even we Christians, when we have matters to decide, we also judge according to the dictates of the Bible. Now, the problem we have is this. What the Qadi does, the Muslim Qadi or the Muslim judge does, is exactly the same thing the Christian pastor, bishop, or elders do. But they do it at their own expense. Therefore, saying, also give Muslims their freedom to exercise their religion, to have their Qadi courts, but at their expense.
Charles.
I think earlier on, I like the arguments he used that we have so many religions in this country. And that is exactly the reason why we need to protect our government from all these religions. Secular government is not there because the government wants to run away from religion. It's because the society, the state as the entity within which religions and government exist, want to protect the government from all these religions. Now, to me, I would have wanted Christians to go for a pure secular state and a pure secular government whereby we do not pray in schools, we do not teach kids religion, we do not... All this kind of stuff that we have in this country that confuses whether we live in a secular state or a secular
The
government.
French system.
Exactly. But the problem here is the distinction between the forms of secular government we adopt in this country. We have a secular government that recognizes the importance of a particular legal element that serves a particular religion. It is not the state recognizing that religion. It is the government bringing another aspect of the legal structure, which is acceptable in constitutional philosophy. You can create a legal system that really recognizes a particular religious belief or a particular religious practices and the importance of that practice to the society. The problem comes in, where do you put it? In the constitution or in the mainstream legal system? I think the debate was lost when most Christians, in my case actually, to me I blame Christians on this debate because they lost it. They were not able actually to put their case, to distinguish between the kind of legal system that emerges from a secular government and the kind of legal and the kind of society that we live in as a secular state. I would have wanted Christians to come out and say, look, the kind of legal structure that the government or the constitution is trying to create within the government that we are forming in this constitution can still exist without having Qadi courts in the constitution.
It's an interesting point you raised. Jared, let me come to you. Could the argument be made, as Charles is saying, that as Christian leaders, some Christian leaders, or perhaps the entire Christian leader institution, establishment as well, has failed to properly communicate their message across, not just to government, because that's one thing, but communicating it to your followers as well? Because let's face it, they're the ones who are going to go to the polls, they're the majority. Has that message been effectively communicated to them?
Well, I think the message has been effectively communicated, but some people have chosen not to understand it. Because what has been said, and not only by me, by several Christian leaders, is that we are not in any way opposing the issue of Qadhi courts. Muslims can practice their religion. In fact, if Muslims are denied in any way from practicing their religion by the government, that could turn even to haunt us Christians and other religions. However, what we are saying, and I would like to emphasize it, that let religious matters be confined to places of worship. That when Christians want to put up a church, it should be their responsibility to raise money and put up that church. If they want to buy an extra car for their bishop, let them put them together, they fund the resources and buy an extra car for
So essentially, would you agree with what he's suggesting, a pure secular state, religion to be stripped out completely from anything?
Now, what I didn't agree with him is when he says that we cannot separate religion from the kind of government that we have because it's not purely secular, for the reason that in schools, religion is taught. Now, what is taught in schools as a religion is actually the facts of religion, which is necessary for the expansion of knowledge. The religion, let's say like CRE, is not taught to make people Christians. I would like to believe that it should not be taught to make people Muslims, but rather to expand the knowledge of students and peoples, that this is what, when you hear something called Islam, this is what it takes.
Let me go back to an argument you earlier made about my taxes being used for something I don't benefit from. Now, if I'm in a public school, right, and I was in a public school,
yes,
I'm a taxpayer, technically. Someone else is being taught HRE or IRE at my expense. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, because what I'm saying, when he's being taught ARE or CRE, he's not being taught so that he becomes a Muslim. When people are being taught CRE, they are not being taught so that they become Christians. That's not an evangelism class. They are being taught the facts of Christianity, so that when you come out of school and you hear people talking about something called Christianity, you have enough knowledge from school that you can meaningfully contribute to the debate. The same should also apply to ARE.
Charles?
But what I'm talking about is that we're talking about the institution of religion and the way it gets into society. When we teach Christian religious education, whatever you want to teach in schools, we teach creationism. Right? We teach our kids that God created this in 7 days or 8 days, whatever days we want to teach them. That itself is fundamentally wrong in a secular government and in a secular state. We shouldn't be teaching kids those things. If we want to go pure secular state, we need to let kids learn from reason. And if parents feel that their religion is so important in society, then they should take their kids aside and teach them the way they want to teach them at their own expenses. So if we want secular state and we want a secular government, please, let's not pretend. Let's go for it. Let's just do what Parliamentary Select Committee did with presidential system. Let's go pure secular state and distinguish where the state institution and government institutions begins and where society and role of religion in that society ends.
Okay, religion should be confined to place of worship. But when you say that we should not teach creationism, or that God creating the world in 7 days, and remove it out, but then at the same time teach Darwinism or evolution theory, then wouldn't we be actually drawing our children to believe, or those that are participating in that education system, to believe in a certain system that has its competing knowledge or system, and that system is put aside?
As secular, as so much secular, as teaching Darwinism in schools.
That's what I'm saying. Darwinism is a theory. Now, Christianity has its own basis for believing in what we believe in creation. So if, in fact, in a secular state, all these theories or these teachings should be presented to the children, not as matters of conviction, but at least as options that there are people who believe the world and people and everything evolved, and there are others calling themselves Christians who believe that according to the teachings of the Bible, God created the earth and everything in it. And therefore, the person going through the system will have the freedom to decide what makes sense, what can I identify with.